Imaginez a vast, pulsating crowd, assembled beneath the unforgiving blaze of the African sun, where flags ripple like the restless breaths of a continent. Long held in chains, the atmosphere crackles with unspoken tension, as a young leader unassuming yet resolute steps forward to the podium. Cameras from around the world focus in, capturing every nuance, every flicker of determination in his eyes. But then, in a heartbeat, the broadcast stutters. The feed cuts to black, leaving millions of viewers across the globe, frozen in bewilderment, their screens echoing with silence. Why, you might wonder, would a speech lasting a mere 2 minutes be so swiftly and ruthlessly suppressed? Banned outright in no fewer than 11 countries? What forbidden truths were spoken that day? Words so potent. They threatened to unravel the carefully woven fabric of global power? This is the riveting saga of Ibrahim Traoré's defiant oration. A singular moment that erupted across social media platforms. Like a wildfire sweeping through dry savannah, garnering over 10 million views in a matter of days. Yet, as this clip proliferated, shared and reshared by eager hands, a sinister veil began to descend. Whispers circulated in digital corners that the version captivating the masses was incomplete, tampered with in a calculated act of erasure, stripping away a pivotal fragment that held the key to its true revolutionary fire. Hold tight, for the unveiling that follows will not only challenge your perceptions, but ignite a profound reckoning with the essence of courage. In an era dominated by shadows, censorship, and unyielding suppression, to fully comprehend the explosive impact of this event, we must delve deep into the intricate tapestry of Burkina Faso's history, a nation ensconced in the heart of West Africa's Sahel region, where the sands whisper tales of resilience amid relentless adversity, formerly known as Upper Volta. During the iron grip of French colonial rule, which spanned from the late 19th century until formal independence in 1960, the country has long grappled with the lingering phantoms of imperialism. Even after the colonial flags were lowered, invisible tethers remained. Exploitative economic agreements that siphoned wealth abroad, military pacts that ensured foreign influence in domestic affairs, and a cycle of dependency that kept the populace ensnared in poverty, while resources flowed to distant metropolises. Consider the luminous yet tragic figure of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's revolutionary president in the 1980s, who boldly rechristened the nation Burkina Faso, meaning the land of upright people. To symbolize dignity and self-determination, Sankara was a visionary firebrand, implementing sweeping reforms, mass vaccination campaigns that safeguarded millions of children, ambitious infrastructure projects built through communal labor, and a fierce rejection of international debt that he deemed odious and unjust. He famously declared, "He who feeds you controls you," underscoring his drive for agricultural self-sufficiency and economic autonomy. Yet, his audacity proved fatal. Assassinated in 1987, in a coup widely believed to have been orchestrated with French complicity, his death ushered in an era of turmoil, marked by corrupt regimes, political instability, and a parade of leaders who often prioritized foreign alliances over national welfare. In the ensuing decades, Burkina Faso became a battleground for broader regional woes. Jihadist insurgencies, spilling over from neighboring Mali and Niger, terrorized the northern provinces, displacing over 2 million people and straining an already fragile economy. Coups became almost routine, with military takeovers in 2014, 2015, and again in 2022, reflecting deep-seated frustrations with governance failures. Amid this chaos, the Sahel Alliance emerged, uniting Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, in a pact to combat terrorism independently, shunning traditional Western partners like France and the United States, in favor of new collaborators such as Russia, who offered military aid, without the paternalistic demands for democratic reforms that often concealed ulterior motives. This shift alarmed the global establishment. French military bases, once fixtures on Burkinabe soil, were expelled amid public protests, chanting slogans of liberation. Western media outlets responded with narratives, framing these changes as descent into authoritarianism or Russian puppetry, conveniently overlooking the centuries of plunder that had impoverished the region. Burkina Faso's gold mines, among the richest in Africa, yield billions annually. Yet the lion's share benefits multinational corporations, headquartered in Europe and North America, leaving local communities mired in destitution, with 80% of the population surviving on less than $2 a day. Similarly, uranium extracted from Niger illuminates French cities via nuclear power, while Nigerians endure frequent blackouts. Cocoa beans from Ivory Coast delight global confectioners, but farmers receive a pittance, perpetuating a cycle of exploitation. Ponder this haunting question. Why does the international community maintain such a deafening silence? When Africa asserts its right to fairness and equity, is it mere oversight, or a deliberated dread that genuine sovereignty on the continent would dismantle the precarious edifice of the global economy, built upon unequal trade, resource extraction, and debt servitude? As articulated in a poignant 2023 report by the African Union, this silence is not born of ignorance, but of complicity, a tacit agreement among powerful nations to preserve a status quo that enriches the few at the expense of the many. It is within this volatile, charged context that Ibrahim Traoré's emergence took root, a spark destined to ignite, a conflagration of awakening and defiance. Now, let us turn our attention to the protagonist of this unfolding drama, Ibrahim Traoré himself, a man who embodies the unyielding spirit of his people, rather than the polished veneer of inherited privilege. Born in 1988, in the modest town of Koudougou, nestled in Burkina Faso's central region, Traoré grew up in an environment far removed from opulence. His childhood was shaped by the rhythms of rural life, dusty paths where children chased dreams, under the shade of ancient baobab trees, families toiling in fields parched by erratic rains, and elders passing down oral histories of resistance against colonial overlords. Without the advantages of wealth or elite connections, he pursued a path in the military, enlisting in the Burkinabe armed forces, and rising through the ranks via sheer grit and intellect, earning his captaincy through dedicated service. Rather than nepotism, envision him vividly, a slender yet commanding presence, with eyes that burn with an intensity forged in the crucible of national strife, eyes that seem to hold the collective sorrows and aspirations of a nation. His voice, when he speaks, carries a measured cadence, like the steady drumbeat of a traditional balafon, resonating with authenticity, rather than rehearsed rhetoric. Prior to his ascension via the 2022 coup, which ousted a predecessor seen as ineffectual against insurgent threats, Traoré was often undervalued, labeled as too young, too inexperienced, a mere upstart daring to question entrenched hierarchies. Critics in diplomatic circles dismissed him as impulsive, a radical whose admiration for Sankara's legacy bordered on recklessness. Yet, those who knew him closely saw something profound, a profound commitment to justice, inspired by the ghosts of revolutionaries past in sparse early interviews. Captured on grainy footage from local media, he articulates his ethos with quiet fervor. I do not seek power for its own sake. I stand because my brothers and sisters have bled too long. Under the weight of indifference and exploitation, Traoré mirrors the archetype of the everyday Burkinabe, the resilient farmer contending with climate whims, the weary miner descending into perilous shafts. For scant reward, the ambitious student, hungering for knowledge, untainted by foreign agendas, devoid of familial links to corrupt cabals, or secreted fortunes in offshore havens. His arsenal consists solely of unvarnished truth, a weapon that tyrannical systems, erected on foundations of deception and control, find utterly intolerable. In Traoré, the masses behold their own reflection, a testament that true heroes are not born in gilded halls, but emerge from the indomitable will of the oppressed, ready to forge a new dawn. The build-up to the climactic confrontation unfolded with the inevitability of a gathering storm. It transpired in September 2024, during the annual United Nations General Assembly in New York, a grand theater where world leaders convene, in opulent chambers, to exchange lofty ideals and veiled barbs. Amid the sea of tailored suits and diplomatic pleasantries, Traoré arrived in his unadorned military uniform, a stark symbol of authenticity. Amid artifice, whispers rippled through the hall. As he approached the lectern, delegates from powerful nations exchanging uneasy glances. Sensing the air shift, with impending disruption, as the chamber fell into a pregnant hush, Traoré commenced his address, his words cascading forth. Like a river breaking free from dams of restraint, he excoriated the insidious tendrils of neocolonialism, enumerating how foreign entities plunder Africa's abundant resources, while fomenting discord to maintain dominance. Africa is no supplicant begging scraps from your table, he intoned, his tone unwavering. We demand recognition as equals, architects of our own fate. He dissected the duplicity of international aid, which burdens nations with crippling debt. Under the guise of benevolence, he condemned military incursions that install compliant regimes, ensuring continued access to minerals and markets, and he decried media portrayals that caricature African leaders as despots, ignoring the predatory policies that exacerbate instability. The tension escalated palpably as Traoré lauded nascent alliances with partners like Russia and China who extend support. Without imposing ideological straitjackets, he pledged unyielding resolve in eradicating terrorism, but on terms defined by Africans, not dictated from afar. At precisely the 47-second juncture, a deliberate pause ensued, Traoré fixed his gaze directly upon the camera lens, as though transcending the physical space to commune with every downtrodden soul, tuning in from remote villages or urban slums worldwide. We ascend not to genuflect in subservience, he resumed, his voice swelling to a resonant peak, but to seize our rightful destiny. With heads held high, applause thundered from African and allied delegations, a chorus of affirmation, while representatives from Western powers maintained a frosty reticence, their discomfort etched in rigid postures. The oration, spanning a scant 2 minutes and change, resonated like an epochal manifesto, a clarion call poised to realign geopolitical fault lines and inspire grassroots movements. However, as truncated excerpts proliferated online, amassing views at a dizzying pace, an unsettling incompleteness lingered. The termination felt unnaturally abrupt, as if a vital coda had been surgically excised, leaving audiences yearning for the unspoken resolution. And then, the pivotal twist erupted, a revelation that transmogrified intrigue into incandescent indignation. The viral phenomenon, enthralling over 10 million viewers, was, in truth, a desecrated artifact, meticulously edited to expunge the culminating defiance that crystallized its essence. In the authentic, unaltered rendition, Traoré's timbre deepened with solemn gravity, culminating in the indelible proclamation, "If I am not alive after today, tell them I never knelt." These syllables, a poignant testament to unassailable fortitude, a vow that even mortality could not compel submission, were methodically obliterated, suppressed across digital behemoths, in at least 11 nations, encompassing erstwhile colonial dominions and their confederates, under flimsy rationales of disinformation or national security imperatives. State-sanctioned transmissions invoked technical malfunctions, but clandestine disclosures intimated orchestration from exalted echelons, apprehensive that such rhetoric could kindle conflagrations of uprising across the global south. It laid bare the precarious underbelly of hegemony, illustrating how a solitary unbowed figure might galvanize legions to repudiate subjugation. Nevertheless, the human spirit's tenacity prevailed over machinations of control. An unassuming spectator within the assembly, clutching a modest smartphone, surreptitiously documented the integral proceedings, channeling the footage into subterranean conduits, like telegram enclaves and covert collectives, eluding the vigilant gaze of algorithmic sentinels. As the pristine clip percolated to the surface, seismic reverberations ensued. Audiences revisited it in stunned silence, mouths agape at the effrontery of the alteration. Initial incredulity metamorphosed into seething wrath, a unified outcry against the audacity of narrative manipulation, transcending the bounds of mere discourse. It evolved into irrefutable testimony of an establishment quaking in dread, frantic to stifle the reverberations of emancipation. The repercussions manifested as a cataclysmic surge, a virtual inundation, evolving into tangible worldwide activism. In a scant 48 hours, Hashtags such as number Traoré Uncut and number Africa Will Not Kneel ascended to trending pinnacles, disseminated by an astonishing 70 million individuals. Spanning continents, the thoroughfares of Ouagadougou throbbed with demonstrators, their voices amalgamating in rhythmic incantations of the prescribed utterance, echoing like ancestral war cries across the landscape. In the boulevards of Paris, expatriate collectives mobilised, hoisting placards emblazoned with "We Stand Unyielding." Their marches a poignant rebuke to historical overlords. Intimate anecdotes magnified the phenomenon's reach. Envision a dedicated educator in Mali, her eyes brimming with emotion, upon encountering the complete address, who convened impromptu viewings in her hamlet, catalyzing fervent dialogue on autonomy and self-governance. What commenced as a humble assembly burgeoned into countrywide symposiums, fostering a renewed sense of agency. Musicians in Nigeria interlaced excerpts of the oration into pulsating rhythms, crafting anthems that dominated airwaves and ignited dance floors. With revolutionary zeal, artists in South Africa rendered Traoré's piercing visage onto urban canvases, transforming drab walls into vibrant tributes that provoked passers-by to contemplation and action. Even in Western enclaves, where skepticism initially prevailed, podcasters and commentators dissected the suppression's mechanics, conceding with humility that it unmasked entrenched biases. In information dissemination, the transcendence from pixels to palpable change was profound. A rural cultivator in Burkina Faso, apprised of the unabridged quotation through communal broadcasts, rallied neighbors to contest illicit land acquisitions by overseas conglomerates, reclaiming ancestral territories. Inch by inch, across the vast Atlantic, activists within black diasporic circles in the Americas forged parallels to their indigenous battles against systemic inequities, orchestrating solidarity processions that bridged oceans and eras. A solitary, unfiltered utterance thus wove indissoluble threads of unity, demonstrating how verity, once liberated, dissolves barriers of solitude and forges unbreakable coalitions. This torrent of transformation engendered deep-seated epiphanies, recalibrating collective viewpoints. From passive resignation to empowered resolve, a youthful scholar in Ghana confided in a widely circulated testimonial. "I formerly perceived politics as an arcane spectacle, reserved for elites. Today, I comprehend that muteness equates to complicity in oppression." Emboldened, she initiated campaigns advocating for balanced commerce accords, accruing petitions laden with thousands of endorsements, akin to amassing forces for an impending tempest. And venerable matriarch in Senegal articulated her metamorphosis. "Traoré's audacity reawakened a dormant flame within me. We do not merely endure by bending low, we flourish by standing erect." She persuaded her extended kin to eschew imported commodities, channeling support toward indigenous agriculturists and invigorating local marketplaces. These incremental evolutions proliferated exponentially. An enterprising merchant in Ivory Coast, profoundly affected by the disclosure, allocated resources to non-governmental entities, combating graft, bolstering transparency initiatives. A retired envoy in Europe, tormented by ethical qualms over the obfuscation, divulged classified dossiers, illuminating covert interferences in African electoral processes, sparking international inquiries. Conversations permeated households, where families dissected the implications over shared meals. Educational institutions embedded the address within syllabi, unraveling the intricacies of neocolonial dynamics. For nascent minds, societies transitioned from inert recipients of information to vigilant custodians, interrogating official chronicles and insisting upon unadulterated disclosure. Compassion flourished, mending fissures between disparate groups, as citizens internalized a fundamental verity, condoning a solitary injustice. Invites a deluge. The unmasking birthed a cadre of truth sentinels, an alert symphone, ensuring no fabrication persists unassailed, nor distortion unchallenged. In culmination, Ibrahim Traoré's odyssey eclipses the confines of temporal existence, inscribing an everlasting imprint upon the annals of human endeavor. Though perils may encircle him, like encroaching dusk, whispers of assassination plots lingering in the ether. Post-oratory, his quintessence endure undimmed, a luminous guidepost. For the disenfranchised and downtrodden, if I am not alive after today, tell them I never knelt. Those resonant foams encapsulate perennial virtues, uncompromised honor, triumphing over trepidation, authenticity prevailing against artifice, the indomitable human spark. Defying extinction, equity does not manifest spontaneously, a gift bestowed by benevolent fates. It necessitates vigilant pursuit, wrested from the clutches of inertia, through unified exertion and unflinching valor. Traoré illuminated a profound axiom. Dominions, no matter their grandeur, fracture when multitudes collectively decline to yield. His eloquence transcended ephemeral verbiage, evolving into a resonant summons to elevation, to embrace full stature, in a cosmos that perpetually exhorts deference and compliance. If this chronicle has kindled a fervent ember within your being, if you have ever harbored suppressed dissent against pervasive wrongs, seize the moment for transformation, propagate the pristine veracity, share the unexpurgated recording, engage in discourse with companions, amplify the chorus via number I will not kneel, etch your affirmation below. I am awake. Pursue this not for ephemeral accolades or superficial metrics, but in solemn service to righteousness. Integrate into the burgeoning alliance, contributing your timbre to the symphony. Collectively, we fortify the sanctity of revelations, perpetuate the reverence of visionaries, permit this to herald the inception of a vaster renaissance, a world reshaped by awakened souls, refusing to kneel,